Yeah.
Well, I'll move right quickly here. You know, I was asked to speak about Black Americans and the conservative or libertarian movement. And as you can see, there's not a lot of participation in Black America. And there's some reasons for that. Some of those reasons, they're not all bad. It's just a matter of not understanding some, certain dynamics within the Black community. And people ask me all the time. They say, how do you feel, being the only Black person at the Teaparty movement functions?
We love
I feel okay. You were wondering, I have a lot of Black friends. I get a kick out of saying that. I had an interesting experience, and I attended a couple of months ago, I attended the Frederick Douglass Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C., and there was a question and answer period, and the issue came back that the most pressing issue in the Black community is the issue of race. I didn't say it for a joke. And I'm serious. I'm serious. It's not funny. And I don't mean to be offensive, but it's not funny. You see, one of the reasons that Black people are not coming to the conservative movement, and even though many are conservative in the way they live their lives, the way they attend church, the way they love God, the way they raise their families, is because conservatives and libertarians are perceived by the Black community as being racist. So that's not funny. Now let me show you how that happens. Let me show you how that happens. And see, a lot of times it happens because we say things before we engage our brain. Classic example. Recently on the Rachel Maddow show, I guess that's how you say her name, she said, how about desegregating lunch counters? This is what Rand Paul said. Well, what it gets into then is if you decide that restaurants are publicly owned and not privately owned, then do you say that you should have the right to bring your gun into a restaurant? Well, most of us have heard about this, what he said, and so forth. But here's the problem. When you talk about, I tell you what, for those of you that were in the session with Chris Doss yesterday, he gave us a wealth of information. And so I want to kind of reiterate something that he said. You have to be careful about certain things that you say as a conservative and a libertarian, because the words that you use many times has historical baggage. And if you speak that word and say that word, you take the baggage of the past, the issue that's been resolved, dealt with, buried, put to bed, and you bring and put it front and center right now on the scene for today to be discussed. He answers a question that has no business being asked, but he answered it anyway. He followed somebody else's predetermined premise, and they're going to wrap that around his neck and hang him with it if they possibly can. So the reason that I'm not perceived as racist, I'm perceived as an Uncle Tom. But the reason that we're perceived as racist or Uncle Toms and we're conservatives is because we speak from a philosophical perspective that has no connection to historical reality. And that is ridiculous. It's unexcusable. I mean, none of us are mentally retarded here. We know how these things work. I mean, don't we? Yeah. I mean, if a person has a reputation of being a drunk, I mean, you don't take them to the bar. Unless you don't like it. I want to, as a preacher, I always try to throw in the scripture here. So here's my scripture for today. It's a biblical scripture, and it says this: out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth does speak. So, I mean, it's a pretty obvious question that Mr. Paul is going to have to answer. Are you saying that you would rather that the lunch counters still be segregated? Of course he doesn't. But that is the implication. So when you say, states' rights, are you crazy? It wasn't states' rights, it was slavery. States' rights was the ostensible reason to justify slavery. Now, I can say that because I think my forefathers were slaves. And but what about you got a good master? I mean, a master is a master. Who wants one?
That's right.
When they treated their slaves good, who cares? I'd rather be free than well taken care of by a master. Now, to be fair to Rand Paul, I don't believe that he was saying that he did not care about black people, or he did not care about the situation of civil rights, and he doesn't think, I don't think he meant that at all. But you see, here's one of the challenges that we have as conservatives and libertarians. Whenever somebody puts their foot in their mouth, we do not have the luxury of being quiet about it. We will then allow the label to be passed to us as racists. If we want to reach the black community, we've got to take a strong position when somebody says something ridiculous like that. We give them a break in the sense that it can be forgiven, but we cannot be quiet about it. And let me give you an example. I know, people say, well, I just don't know why black people follow Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and Barack Obama. What's wrong with them? Nothing. Historically, black people have been for black people, and white people have been against black people. It's easy. Now listen, I have a lot of white friends. I get a kick out of saying stuff like that. But now again, I'm not trying to buffalo your fellas. I'm trying to show you something right quick, and I got to shut up because I'm almost 30 seconds. I got to stop. You see, here's the reality. If something happens against somebody black in America, you want to know who's going to be the first person showing up to get the camera space? Jesse Jackson. He's going to be a defender of black people wherever and whatever they're going through. You know what Al Sharpton is going to do? Oh, no, wait a minute now. It's a success story here. Jesse Jackson started with nothing. And now he has a national stage. That's a success story in the black community. You can call him poverty pimp if you want to. He's a hero to black people. And when you call him a poverty pimp, the red light goes on. You are a racist. You're not a racist. You didn't understand the dynamic that you were dealing with. When Al Sharpton was a boy preacher. And now, he's on CNN, Fox News, being considered seriously. You can call him these names if you want to, but now your issue that you and I are trying to put forth gets no reasonable consideration because now you are discredited by discrediting a hero. This final 15 seconds. I talked to an 80-year-old friend of mine who's very conservative. He spent over 30 years in the Air Force, spent another 20 years in county government right here in Wilmington. And very conservative. And when Barack Obama was nominated to run for president, he called me. He said, I got to talk to you. Went over. We'd sit up and talk for hours. He said, I know you got to vote for this man. I said, no, I can't vote for him on principle. Can't vote for him. He said, but wait a minute. I never thought in my lifetime that I would ever see a black man be president of the United States. And here now we have a black man that is being selected as the primary candidate for the Democratic Party. Are you crazy? We're making history. This is unheard of. I'm 80. There's no way I could have dreamed this. And Barack Obama immediately became a hero to many black Americans. He is a socialist. He is a Marxist. He doesn't like America. But you and I have to be sensitive about who we're talking about and the people that see him as a hero if we're going to win black America. We're already conservative, many of us. We just don't like some of the things that we as conservatives say and how we say that. Tone is everything. Conservatism embraces change, but change that does not destroy the wisdom that was discovered by previous generations. And that is the reason that when we open our mouths, we have to be careful about speaking evil of past things that were done by way of the federal government that set black people free. The government had to set black people free.